All right, let's move on to the player awards, which is sure to be a little more controversial perhaps. There's a lot of good things to discuss. And I say that because, there's a lot of really deserving players this year. But we're going to start with perhaps a smaller category. We're going to start with player with best outside the box moment. And both of you guys are actually mentioned in this category. So I want us to get started there. If Spicy, you want to talk about the thing you're mentioned for.
Yes. So, this is in Simpler Genius, which was the final four main match of Simply Genius, in which myself, No Lux Grunkle, and Ben, all from Gambit Game, came back. And we basically were playing a race where we were playing all 6 of the main matches that have been played up till that point, mini versions of them, and the contestants were betting on us. Now, we didn't mention this, at all throughout the main match awards, and truthfully, this is because I do have some bones with the actual design, particularly some of the minigames being a little bit hard for a player to pull ahead or even get any sort of a lead. I also did very poorly on this match, but basically, by round 3 or 4 of the 6-round game, I was already pretty much out of the running for actually being able to win on my side, and I was very frustrated about this. As it turns out, Peter and KG, who were the 2 favorites, I think that is uncontroversial to say. They have been playing with the most agency in that main match. Their placements were going to be determined by a very thin margin of error at the very end of the game. And this was because the winner was Ben. Ben was already going to win the match. I was going to lose the match. Due to the way the game works, it was very hard for a big swing to happen. But No Lux and Grunkle were both 1 point away from each other in the race. And so this last submission, the 2 of them were the 2 people that we all had eyes on. And it's funny because Peter comes to me and is like, hey, I would appreciate if you threw this. And that was all he gave me. And it's not the most, necessarily, it's not very inspiring, I would say, of a pitch. KG, meanwhile, comes to me. Keep in mind how this game works. Basically, for the last round, it's based on 4 formulas where you're making formulas. I'm not going to go into the minutia because it doesn't matter, but the goal is to make formulas that are as close to each other as possible. There is also a bonus for having the highest total equation count. And KG comes to me and is like, the only way I can lose is if No Lux, who was behind Grunkle, has the highest equation total, which he could very well have. I want you to submit a ridiculously large equation. You are not going to get any points for the traditional way you score this, but you're already in last place. Instead, I would like you to specifically get the highest total bonus, because that's the last variable. That's basically the last variable that could cause a switch up. And I'm like, if you do all the work, sure. And he's already done the work for me. I have not told him my cards. He has figured out my cards already and has completely given me everything I need. And I was like, holy shit, okay. And sure enough, this was the one contingency that Peter did not plan for. And if I had not submitted that, if KG had not asked me, No Lux would have gotten the bonus for having the highest equation, would have passed Grunkle, and that would have been enough to let Peter win and take him to the finals. As it turns out, this was incredibly important, as Peter would lose the final 3 match to Cody. So it straight up defined it, and that was just KG thinking out of the box and realizing that I wasn't going to win the match, and basically used me as a pawn.
Yeah, no. Like, I remember watching this happen live, and I was like, this is incredible. This is an incredible play. Because, like, obviously it makes sense. When you lay it out like that, Spicy, that, oh yeah, obviously Spicy's 1 point matters. But in the moment, it feels kind of counterintuitive to go to the guy who is completely out of the race and ask him to submit something. But it ended up mattering, and that was the one blind spot in, like, Peter's social, right? Like, Peter's social, because he was already talking to, you know, Grunkle and Nolux and Ben or whatever. But it's difficult for Peter to realize that there was this out for KG to guarantee his victory. And KG seized it. He went to Spicy, gave him a submission. Was like, I already know what you have. Like, just do this. And Spicy was impressed that he was like, yeah, I'll just do it. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Spicy, but you went into this match as someone who spectated Simply Genius, being like, I don't want KG to win.
No, as a spectator, I did not want KG to win. But KG and Peter both showed why they were competent throughout Simply in their agency. But this was one thing that KG was a step ahead on Peter, and I think that was the key point. Because Peter was just like, hey, could you throw this? But KG kind of outlined everything and came to me with his pitch all prepared. He had all of it, and it was because I would be rejecting it sort of for what reason? Because I was not going to win already. I was out of this match for quite some time due to the way I did a stupid play early on that I did partially for content, admittedly. And it did not pay off at all. And so I was completely out of it. And I was just incredibly impressed with his ability to realize this specific variable in a game where it was very hard for people to gain or lose positions. He noticed this one variable where someone could sneak through and was able to completely nullify it.
Super, super impressive. And it'd probably be my vote out of this category. That said, X, your name is also mentioned here.
Yeah,
I
would like to tell people not to vote for this one, actually.
Okay, and why do you say that?
So this game, the game we played was Unlimited Gem Auction. And it's not an original game. It's from the show called Time Hotel. Basically, how the game works is you have a bunch of rounds where a gem is up for auction. You can bid on the gem, simultaneous private submissions. Each gem is worth 1 through 4 points, whatever, right? Whoever bids the largest amount wins that gem and its corresponding points. Whoever bids the lowest amount gains a coal that's worth -1 point. Whatever, right? The gimmick of this game is you can bid any number, literally any number. There is no limit to how high you can bid. So now the catch is whoever bid, only the winning bid will be taken, and whoever bids the most amount of money across all of the rounds will automatically go to the deathmatch with no say in who their opponent is, because this is a 3-player deathmatch, where whoever has the least points will become easy and pick a third opponent. So that is the game. And you know, this game had been run before in Chardren's Minecraft Genius 2. And that's where the other players knew this game from. They did not watch the show where, you know, this game got played originally. So other players had the mindset of for reference, the highest total amount spent in season 2 of Chardren's Minecraft Genius, I believe was like almost 400 something, or almost 600, something like that, right? Where it was in the hundreds. So that was the ballpark people were playing at. You know, someone like on round 1, a 4-point gem came up, so you know it was worth a lot. But it's round 1, right? You do not know how many rounds like this game would take. It would just end like at any point. The round number is predetermined, but just not revealed to the players. Because it's round 1, people like, you know, some people played conservatively. They went like 15 or like maybe 50. Someone actually like bid 100 or some shit to be bold, right? And yeah, I was also like kind of in the same mindset of like it's round 1. I bid a modest amount of 100 billion. And I mean, like, I thought the other players would bid ludicrously large amounts. Also, I was originally gonna bid like fucking like 10 raised to the 1,000, you know, and then the host kind of like Sean like pinged me and went, I would strongly recommend against bidding this amount. Are you sure you want to do it? And I went, you know what? I will heed your warning. 100 billion only. So that happened, and the reason why I did that was, to be like, first off, the way it played out in the show Time Will Tell was like people eventually inflated the prices, like so much to where like, you know, like early on, like people playing conservative like just didn't matter. So I had that point of reference. That was just the polar opposite of like the other players' ballpark of like what a good value is. Obviously, there's the risk of like now that I bid the most amount in round 1 of 100 billion, the other 4 players can just band together and be like, okay, let's never spend over 100 billion, and then we'll just fight to like avoid coals, and then XNimus will automatically go to the deathmatch, and then we'll, you know, play out the rest from there, right? I just kind of assumed, you know, someone will get greedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, as always.
Yeah, right? It always happens on the Genius. Like, you'll never get 4 people. Especially since 2 out of the 4 of them are going to the deathmatch anyway, alongside me if they choose to ice me out. So, like, I just kind of figured, like, you know, they will never agree to ice me out. It's just not going to happen. First off, there's, like, less of a points, because like, coals are worth -1, right? So, like, they're always playing in increments of 1 point, whereas like gems are worth like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? There's a bigger point swing there. So the other players are just, you know, if you are so far behind, right, why not just like let all hell break loose and like bid like a shit ton, outbid me anyway. So that was my rationale for just betting big. Eventually, the game devolves into people pulling out big numbers out of their ass with no rhyme or reason.
And we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. But yeah, so it is unintuitive to, you know, just like bid large amount, risking like automatically going to the deathmatch. But I will say this play loses a lot of points because this was a strategy that has been done on the show that this game was from. So it's not, you know, I did not like get inspired to do like an original plan. I just kind of, that was my blueprint, you know? Yeah. I followed a blueprint.
So it was already something that's been done. So it's kind of hard to say it's outside the box.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That makes sense.
That being said, I think I'm not sure if the other players would have done it even if they saw how it played out in Time Hotel.
That is true. Nobody is crazy enough to do this shit except you.
Yeah, it's a very you-coded move.
But I will anti-shill for that. I think like the Cajun one is better.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Cajun one is the runaway favorite.
Well,
I can talk a little bit about the... Yeah, you want to go for it, Spicy?
yeah, I was going to say, because honestly, I think Captain Meme has a run for KG's money. Just because this is using a feature of the game in a really, really good way.
Yeah, that's true.
This is obviously Coding Pyramid, which is the Codenames play, and we talked a little bit about this already, but basically this was a game where it was who could break it more effectively, who could more clearly indicate that they were completely ignoring the actual point of the game and were making it into a trivial type of thing. And so the real linchpin here is the feature that each player can add one word of any of their choice to their board after drafting a set number of words. And one is not super useful on paper.
Yeah.
What happens is, because Awesome also tries to break this, and Awesome tries to break it by basically cluing alphabetically, where he's just going to put each set of words alphabetically. Each time it will be the same clue, because you can give the same clue. So each time he's just going to give alphabetically. The problem was, if people aren't thinking outside of the box immediately, they'll miss that. And that does end up happening, partially because for some reason he also has like the first clue that he does is not meta at all.
It's a normal clue, yeah.
I don't entirely know why. I think it was... Either way, what Meme is doing is he is basically having it be the letter length. So 5 letters would be clued with 5. And he uses his special word. He puts in bacteriologically. And the first clue is 15. And in a board where, like, if you... Sorry, it's bacteriological is what it is, not bacteriologically.
The clue was not 17.
But it stands out, where if you look at it, it very clearly is a word that stands out compared to all the others, which is such a genius way to immediately draw your attention to this idea of basically pulling a loophole and ignoring the way this game works.
Yeah, for sure. And then he just keeps going it, right? He says like 7 to longest 3.
But
3,
it's
4.
But the thing about this is that it's as soon as you get the first hook, you're gravy. And so that's the real thing, where it's that initial hook that I think is so clever that it's as notable as you could get. It almost feels like if Awesome had put like aardvark or something as the first one for alphabetical, where it's just a word that stands out just looking at all of them. And so as soon as you get this idea that this word is really weird, it doesn't belong here, maybe this is the one, as soon as you get that, all of the others you'll have easily.
No, I think this is also a good nomination. My one kind of caveat is just that, like you said, I think Coding Pyramid is a game that begs its players to break it. So it feels like almost counterintuitively a little less outside the boxy, because it feels like that's what the game wants you to do. While in KG's case, it's kind of like he really just pulled that out of like a normal main match. He was like, okay, well, I'm just going to make this mine. I'm going to come up with this counterintuitive play that is best for me and then give it to someone else to do. So that's why I think the KG one is slightly more outside the box, but like they're both really, really good in my opinion.
For like, to be clear, I think the Captain Meme nomination, it's a brilliant play. It's just a brilliant creative brilliant display of creativity and whatever, right? I could not think of a second word.
Jesus.
But I think not for this category, but if it were nominated for best play or something, I can see it.
It's not.
Fuck. What a tragedy.
let's move on to biggest underdog main match victory. So for this, I have a piece to say. So personally, out of these nominations, I think the winner should be Hidden winning Hive Mind. Because to be honest, this hasn't been a year with like a lot of big upset main match underdog victories. But going into that final 5 main match, Hidden was close to the bottom of my rankings. He was in 4th place out of 5. And it was because he was just sent to the death match because all of his social pretty much blew up. Right? All of his closest allies were either dead or sent home, or had just betrayed him to make sure that he was in last place. Right? So make sure that he was in the death match because everybody had identified him as like the premier main match threat. So going into this episode, I was like, there's no way Hidden is going to win the main match. He's probably consigned to a fate of, in the deathmatch again, but all the agency has is pretty much who he gets to fight in the deathmatch. But somehow, some way, the major lockout 3-person alliance of Maji, Apple, and Major Banshee end up having like a miscommunication breakdown. And Hidden takes this opportunity to kind of like subtly suggest a counter alliance with Major Banshee and Apple. He cashes in some social cred that I didn't even know he had, right? Like at this point, I'm like, it's already burnt. Like Major Banshee has already stabbed him. Apple has had Hidden at like the top of her 2-kill list for the entire game. And somehow Hidden is like, guys, let's make an alliance. And Apple is like, I don't know how this happened, but Hidden is my final 2 now. Major Banshee is like, yeah, let's make this work. And like, he has this counter alliance. Maji and Axel are suddenly on the outs. And somehow, like, the craziest thing is when you usually have an alliance like this, right? Where 2 people are betraying someone in like a big way. And you have like a 3rd person who's hedging their bets or whatever. Like the people who are betraying are generally the people that you want to be safe because they're the ones who are probably most vulnerable, right? But no, like somehow, some way, Hidden is the one who wins the main match because he like he subtly like moves the game to like flow into that current. And admittedly, like Major Banshee doesn't push back on it that much. Major Banshee is like a Hidden win is my win because I think Hidden is going to token me and not Apple, right? But basically there's no resistance to the idea that, yeah, Hidden should be the one who wins. So they get it so that Hidden gets like all the points. And somehow at the end of this main match, he's the one who wins a main match that I gave him close to 0% odds of winning. And I think it's just incredible and really speaks to how good he was at main matches throughout Genius Recharge. Like, I think he got 4th, but he got the most amount of tokens in that org. And it's because he's able to like really pull out all these social connections and make sure he's always in contention for things, no matter what happens. And I feel like really when we're talking about underdogs in terms of like start of episode to end of episode, I think Hidden is definitely the top of this list when it comes to all of these nominations.
I did not spectate Hive Mind as actively, but I also think it's a great one. I wanted to also bring up Heater winning Human Pyramid in Genius 1, just because, as we mentioned earlier when we were talking about how the main match played out in general, Heater was on the outs, it felt like. And again, it has been a while, so I don't have a perfect answer to what ended up happening, but just in general, I think a lot of people were sort of underestimating Heater, and so for him to pull off a very, very definitive win without having the social capital that some people had due to a lot of things falling apart, it made for a compelling main match 1 story and a winner where, especially since some people felt sore about him winning because of the plan to add the $10 to the prize pool that had completely fallen apart. And I thought it made a very compelling storyline. It's a shame that it didn't last for long, but for one main match storyline.
Yeah, I gotta say, let me make sure if I have this correct, right? Like, I think what ended up happening was there was like a kind of an outside alliance because these are the people I think who did like badly on the main match 0 or something. Captain, Meme, Heater, and Amazin created an alliance with the 3 of them. and they were able to kind of like sneak through all the nonsense that was occurring everywhere else to kind of push through a win for them, which I think, and then of course Heater ended up tokening Captain Meme and Amazing, and I think, like you said, it really did feel like it came out of nowhere. I feel like for a lot of the players, obviously we have Spec Omni Vision or whatever, but I feel like for a lot of players, it was probably not the people they were expecting, because the big and loud voices are obviously like Grayson and Morthai, who are organizing these big alliances. And then like even when it comes to like message count, right, it's MC and Sixella that are like talking to everyone, trying to, you know, social with everyone. And really, like, none of them are the ones who win this one. It's Heater and his small alliance who's able to take advantage of the chaos and come out on top. So it's pretty incredible. But like you said, it's pretty unfortunate, you know, Heater got eliminated the next episode. If we're going to talk about things that we probably won't be voting for, I don't know about the awesome Spice Trader win, because like on paper, yes, for someone who doesn't have the kind of omnipresent access that we have, it does feel like, wow, how did Awesome win this? Like, that's crazy. It's because Sixella and Tiak were just giving him all the information. Like, I don't think at any point was Awesome like ever really in danger. Like, yes, he could have ended up EC, but he wasn't going to, because like he had all the info, you know? Mm-hmm. So I'm not really sure if that really deserves to be here. And of course, like once he was out of EC, he got the token, right? It's not like he ended up winning it himself. It was Tiak who won and then gave the token to Awesome. So I'm not really sure if it belongs in this category.
Yeah.
Thanks for the contribution, X.
Oh, always here to deliver.
Yeah, wasn't this meant to be like your category X? Isn't this when you wake up? I'm kidding.
What? The fuck?
Okay, maybe we'll wake up for this, X. I'll give you first word for the next category. Let's talk about the biggest underdog deathmatch victory.
Yeah.
X, get us started.
All right, so you know, you cannot get more dog than you know, a literal dog. And so, you know, if you are fighting a literal dog, you are automatically the underdog. And
that made zero sense.
That
made zero sense.
No, you're just a hater.
I get it.
Yeah, so you know, Rose beating Uri Quack.
Oh, I thought you were gonna go Razor, because Razor's literally a furry.
Oh,
Grunkle beating Razor.
Nah,
you see,
fuck that shit.
your thing didn't make any sense.
No.
Spicy, you agree with me, right?
Uri's a dog, bro.
Okay, anyways, continue.
No, Rose beating Uri. I think, like, especially in a game like this, I know, like, Uri's, like, biggest weakness as a player is, like, he'll just shut down mentally. But, like, I do think, like, going into the deathmatch, you see a math game. You see Uri as, you know, like, a very mental person. Like, I think, like, on average, this should be the type of deathmatch like Uri like crushes most average players on. And that's not even to mention, like, you know, his pre-existing reputation in comparison to Rose. Who, you know, like in the previous season of SMG that Rose played, like, was like first boot or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you know, in terms of like perceived skill set, perceived reputation, and then how it ultimately played out, where Rose just like completely destroys Uri. Like, I think that is, like, to me, that's just the clear winner for this category.
Yeah, no.
I don't have to explain the game. It's a game called Math Finding. You figure it out. Figure out what type of game it is.
And I know that Uri can be harsh on himself, but he is just at least he comes across as generally competent. I think that is the vibe that I get from. I've never specifically witnessed him playing actively until that one, but secondhand and, you know, and going back and seeing a lot of other things, you have an idea, especially when you have a known face in the Genius community versus someone who's a little bit more of an up-and-comer who has less of a great history. my only experiences with Rose had been losing matches, because I had a challenge org that they also lost the first match. So the first match that they played, rather. So I knew that I did not have a great history with that. So the fact that she was able to pull that off, her first match, and again, a big upset, just looking at the history of SMG as well, it stands out.
Oh, 100%. And like, Uri is definitely competent. You should not listen to whatever the hell he says. He's probably listening to this right now being like, I'm not competent, but he really, really is. And he's also very like quick with like maths and stuff, because he used to do it a lot when he was in school or whatever. So it's a game, like X said, that I would favor Uri in, like regardless of the opponent or the situation. And for Rose to like overcome that, get her first DM victory onto the scene, like I think it 100% qualifies for this category. Maybe just to give like a second opinion so we don't all just agree on everything and move on, I also do think Amy defeating Sam is notable, just not to the same level, right? Because like Sam is also a great player, a very solid genius player. I would just say Uri Quack is probably a bit better. And I think going into this, death match, I would also probably be like, yeah, probably Sam has a very good chance against Amy. But Amy really clutched up and she won her first official death match in pretty, it was a relatively close game, but like Amy did really well, basically psyching out Sam, just outread him and won her very, very strong first official death match.
I will say Sam was in the lead early on in that death match. So it's also, an underdog victory in that sense, where like she kind of had to come from behind to get that win.
Yeah.
Also.
But by the end, I think I remember she was pretty decisively in the lead. Like it was just the early rounds, Sam kind of read her soul. It's just a little more difficult to place because like Sam, it's a psych game, first of all.
Yeah.
And I know Amy feels more comfortable in psych matches. And second of all, like Amy has won death matches before. Like I've seen Amy win death matches before. They're just not like quote unquote recorded or whatever.
Yeah.
As opposed to Rose, who was like, to me, pretty much a complete unknown quantity. And so when you say, hey, Rose and Uri Quack are facing in a DM, like I don't even need to think about it. I'm just like, yeah, Uri's probably gonna win. While if you say Amy versus Sam, I'd be like, what's the game? Like that would be the natural follow-up. I wouldn't make a judgment. So I think it's just kind of hard to top Rose defeating Uri Quack, but I think Amy defeating Sam is a very solid, honorable mention. Anything else you want to talk about, X or Spicy, about the other two?
I don't think the other two like really count for this category. I don't think Dems versus Yonko, like that's old news. Like Dems is no longer an underdog in terms of reputation. He was certainly not an underdog like in terms of game state. He did not like come from behind to get that victory. It was pretty even back and forth.
Like just to be clear to the listeners or the viewers, Dems beating Grunkle won best underdog DM victory 2 years ago. That specific matchup happening in Zendo,
crazy.
right? In PNP.
Yeah.
So it would be kind of weird if the same matchup won again. Like he's already shown he can beat Grunkle.
It's also like, he's won 2 orgs since
One org. Yeah.
One org since that happened. And then, this was the org where he would get his second win. He has won 2 orgs since that awards season. 1 org, so.
Yeah.
Timing is weird. But, I think Dems has already established himself as, this great player. If he wasn't already before. Grunkle beating Razor and betting RPS. Someone just liked the idea of Grunkle and betting RPS. That's just it. That's the only reason I can fathom why this is even nominated here.
Right. So you were a player in that betting RPS game, right?
From my perspective, Grunkle did not have an information disadvantage. He was not losing in the game. In fact, he was actually winning. The only reason why it became close was because he just overthought like whether Amy would lie to him or not. Spoilers: Amy was telling the truth. He proceeds to make a play that ends up like tying his hand versus Amy's hand. And then Razor just, because he was so far behind, all he could mathematically do is like bet on tie, which didn't even matter because like he was so far behind where even like an all-in on tie just does not win him the game. So it's like,
yeah, that's fair.
Someone just really liked the bit a little too much.
I mean, it's an old bit, Spicy, you originated it, technically.
Yeah, I was the origin story. And narratively, it's very funny that Grunkle has won betting RPS. But it was also against a complete newbie who didn't really have much of a pedigree and who Grunkle picked because he wanted the person he perceived as the easiest beat. So it's a little less powerful knowing all of that. I don't think an underdog victory
less powerful.
Yeah, I don't think I didn't even consider that. He picked the person he thought was easiest to beat. So that I think makes underdog impossible. Yeah, don't vote for that one. If you're still listening, you're not going to vote for that one, but because you are serious, you're a real genius head, not a fake genius head.
I'm going to be so fucking disappointed if I see even a single vote.
Okay, well, now that you say that, some funny guy is gonna be like, I want to upset XNimus.
Oh, cut that out, bleep that.
Cut that out. Let's get to some of the heavy hitters. Woo. Because now we're gonna get a little controversial, I think. Let's start with best main match player.
Fuck me, this is a hard one.
I mean, it's hard. I will say, new change this year. This is not a per org basis. This is your total body of work throughout the year. And when you say it like that, I think it's very hard to argue against Amy's main match runs in both of her orgs. Not to even mention the work she was putting in as a substitute in Cosmic, right? If we're not counting that, right? Even if we're not counting that, I feel like she has, by the numbers, the most main match wins or immunities this year. She has great performances across two different orgs with two totally different social landscapes. I think it's pretty difficult to argue against the quantity and quality of that. That said, this is a year that saw a lot of great dominant main match runs. So I don't think it's like quite locked in for Amy, but all I know is that I'm definitely voting for Amy. And if I'm voting for anyone else, it's that I'm going to vote for them alongside Amy, right?
I would agree with that take.
Well, I think obviously the big one for Amy, because obviously Code Redone was impressive. She did not miss a single token until her episode to be eliminated, which is very impressive, but that also is an org where a lot of tokens were being given out.
Yeah, they're kind of candy.
Her SMG run, incredibly impressive. 9 tokens out of 13 episodes, especially given that it started with so many people. Regardless of how you slice it, that is very impressive. And a lot of those she was driving too, which I think is one of those important things, because they're definitely, you kind of can get a token of life off the backs of others. And a lot of Amy's successes came entirely in her own abilities.
Yeah, no, 100%. Super impressive.
Yeah, and to add on to what you just said about like the large like episode count, I think like it also speaks to like she basically played like every like possible like player count you can get. Like she's gotten the token with like 15 players, she's gotten the token with 3 players, like and everything in the middle. Not literally, but for the most part. She's proven her adaptability in all kinds of like player counts for when it comes to like these games, which I think is like, yes, like there are other players that have won a lot of tokens, took it all the way to the end, but like does not have that same level of I won with all these different kinds of like situations.
Yeah. I mean, just to mention some other names, right? Like, I think Justin and KG both had fantastic main match runs where they won a majority of the tokens in their respective orgs. But I think it's kind of hard to beat Amy's main match dominance this year.
Yeah.
And like, yes, Justin and KG also ended up winning their respective orgs, something Amy didn't do. But I don't think that factors into this awards discussion, right? When it comes to best main match player, when it comes to main matches, I feel like this has been Amy's year. And like Justin and KG both put up really good performances that probably win in other years, but I don't know, Amy's total body of work is so impressive. And like, I know we're not super counting the cosmic appearances, but like she substituted for Goldie twice, and I think she won both times. Like, she just like got dropped into a social state she had no idea about. In fact, a social state that was actively hostile to her, right? Because she was subbing in for someone that everybody wanted to kill, and she showed up, won tokens both times, and left. Like, that's pretty incredible, I think.
Yeah. Now, that being said, I do want to say, because I think it's almost a shame that Justin has SMG, where he did well, but not, especially given the amount of tokens and the amount of players playing, but his cosmic run is incredible.
Oh, yeah.
And something that I think is worth the fact that he gets DMO'd in episode 4 and then proceeds to get 7 straight tokens, only one of those 7 being gifted to him. The other times he was the one winning. That is something that I think at least people should think about when they're considering this choice, because it's a shame that Cosmic obviously doesn't get as much attention, because that is a crazy dominant run that he pulled off there.
Oh, for sure. It was incredible to watch too, because it wasn't even like, I don't know how to say it. Like, there were multiple times where like a counter Justin alliance would form, right? Like, people would be like, yeah, we can't let Justin like just win again. And then at some point, like, Justin would just win again. And it wasn't like every single time the opposition would just like break. Usually because like Justin would play well and the opposition alliance realized that like, hey, it's actually better for me to like look out for my own safety to make sure I'm not EC, because Justin's just going to win anyways. And I feel like that level of dominance speaks for itself, you know? Anything you want to mention, X?
I don't know. I'm just kind of feeling for AB. I think KG also has a solid run. I think like, given like okay, if you took Amy, Justin, and KG, if you told me like put them in an org, bet on someone to like win a main match, I think I would probably bet on KG, as like probably he'll be most consistent. But I think in terms of results, Amy has delivered, and it's like, you know, you can like, results like these like only come in once in a blue moon. I feel like I kind of have to honor that. Like, when else will you see like someone like across 2 orgs just win like every single bit? You know, like it's like I feel like KG could probably show up as a better poker player, but Amy, like, you know, she has quads. So what am I supposed to do? Like, not give her the win? Like, you know, that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, that's fair.
Not to say that, like, you know, Amy's not good. You know, like, she'll still be great in other orgs she'll play at main matches. But like, I don't know. Yeah. Overwhelming results.
I do want to give a shout out to Cake too, who obviously did her thing. Just kind of gets overshadowed, I think, a lot by some of the other names this year. But I mean, she put up a Cake-worthy performance in Code Redone, so
kind of a cakewalk.
Oh,
kind of a cakewalk.
Listen, in terms of all-time main match players, Cake is so consistent. And to be fair,
I think Cake is a top 3 main match player of all time.
To be fair, Code Redone's main matches definitely play into her style of playing. And I mean, it's clear success. It's clear success. One of the only matches she didn't win in Code Redone was because one of her teammates was AFK, basically.
Yeah. And so pretty incredible stuff.
Also, this can be cut out, but I'm just flaming the person who nominated Marrow. You're not funny. You're not cute. We don't like you.
Also, why is Heater here? Like, Heater played well, but he played one main match.
2.
He won one main match. Oh yeah, he played 2 and he won 1. So like, I don't. Yeah. I also don't know why 6L is here. Like, she played well, but I would not describe her as a main match girl. I think she would say that herself.
Sure, I think she's a deathmatch girl, but not quite looking for a main match boy. Her words, by the way.
That is exactly what she said in her confessional. Yeah, let's move on to best deathmatch player, which I think will be more contested. This one, I genuinely kind of don't know where we're gonna go with. Do you want to start us off, Spicy?
Yeah, I personally am going to be vouching for Cody. And I understand that this might not be the most popular, especially since some of the people who are here have more impressive pedigrees. But I think sometimes it's tough to ignore body of work, but I think just in terms of what was accomplished in the org that she played, Cody has a really, really solid run that I was very much impressed by, winning 3 completely different death matches in terms of what they were testing, with the psychological 3-card trick, the strategic arm's length, and the mental 2 Rons. Then staying ahead in Equilibrium Poker, the Equilibrium Poker 2, which was the final match. Do we count final matches for deathmatch performance? Is that like kosher?
I don't have a problem.
I don't have a problem with it. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I think it's worth considering at least. Losing Bigfoot sighting, which was pretty close, and then really the only big blip was focus group, but that also was a really weird snowbally game that things fell apart in. But past that, I just think it was very impressive to see, especially because I think as the name on this, one of the names on this list that I didn't have as much familiarity to, and maybe my expectations were tempered a little by the cutesy little furry profile picture that she has, that she then came out and kind of took 3 rings all in a row with completely different games. I was immediately a fan. I was immediately rooting for her. I think it's hard to not feel like that's at least somewhat impressive to win 3 completely different games as well. To make that run was a very impressive. It's what caught my attention first and foremost, and I thought it was I think she needs to at least be considered, especially with names, again, you've got Amaranth, Dems, and Idan, who are all, I think, very much up there in terms of current players, consistency, skill in general, so it was very cool to see a new name do so well.
Yeah, I'm shilling for Dems.
Okay, well, you have to explain yourself.
Yeah, because there's one very big blip on that.
Yeah, pretty big.
You're not counting split together.
No, I'm counting his tracks implosion.
Yeah, against Amaranth.
Yeah, but that's a mistake that, like, it wasn't made.
Yeah. Okay, I think his highs are very high.
It's true.
I think there's a large quantity of those highs as well.
Yes, correct.
And he's played all kinds of games, as much like Cody. But he's also played more. He's also won more. He's also, like, the level of opponents that he's beaten is also, I would, on average rate higher, at least perceive to be rated higher. I also just feel like, much like my poker player versus hand example, like, I would say, like, if you're just betting on someone to be consistent, like Amaranth, duh, right? But, like, I think, when else are you going to get a year where someone wins, like, a collective, like, 8 death matches?
Yes, in terms of quantity, I want to mention Dems has the most deathmatch wins this year.
Yeah.
Because he's obviously played in 3, and he's made finals twice.
Yeah.
Obviously, the big blip that, Spicy and I were talking about is his loss against Amaranth in Code Redone. And, like, I understand your point. Like, obviously it's against Amaranth, but the blunder that he made was not made because his opponent was Amaranth, other than maybe that he got scared.
Yeah.
Right? It's a very like level 1 blunder that he just didn't see.
You're right.
He moved his queen in front of a rook and was like, I messed up.
Yeah. No, I hear you there. I cannot defend that.
and I feel like it's just hard for me to like. Yes, I wouldn't be upset if Dems won this award. Like, to be clear, he's put in the most amount of time this year, and he's shown time and time again that like he can win death matches. He's won so many this year, but it's hard for me to name him the best deathmatch player of the year when there are players that didn't lose in that fashion, and also literally the guy that beat him in this list, right? I know it's boring for us to just talk about Amaranth winning death matches, and I'll be the first to admit that, but his deathmatch wins this year, in terms of just name quality, super, super impressive. Beating 2 other guys that are on this list, deservingly, as best deathmatch player, I think speaks for itself, right? Like, he put on great performances, he's obviously insanely consistent, and like, it makes sense, I think, for him to be in contention for this award. Like, yes, we can point and nitpick and be like, yeah, Dems just like it imploded for no reason, right? But that's not something that we should use to detract from Amaranth's consistent play. And he's shown that like he can beat Dems, he can beat Edan, and he also beat Scarlet. And did he win one other deathmatch? And then he beat Amy, right? Like that is a pretty impressive set of names. Even if, Dems and Eden are doing a lot of the carrying there. Sorry to say. But yeah, and obviously, like, I don't want to discredit Amy either, who was on the up and up this year. Like, she won her first DM. She's obviously very talented. Just unfortunate she didn't really practice for that deathmatch and ended up getting completely rolled. So, like, I think Amaranth has a very good case. I think a lot of these names have a very good case. I do want to shout out Luna, who, like, there is a caveat to Luna. Like, she lost 2 death matches, right, in the same org, but she also had a really, really impressive run in SMG3. And it's something I didn't expect, right? I'm maybe Spicy has a different expectation, but, like, my only experience spectating Luna was Codebreakers, where she played totally different, right? Like, I never really perceived her as a DM threat in Codebreakers. I just was like, oh, she's like kind of socially in the middle. She's navigating things well. She's kind of dodging well enough. And then, obviously, like, I'm sure Spicy would say this, but like, she's kind of 5th place coded because like once the pairs and like alliances solidify, she was gonna be the odd man out. And then she got eliminated in 5th. So I didn't really expect her to show up to SMG and like just string together a bunch of wins. But she strung together a lot of impressive wins too. So I thought she deserved the shout out here.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, listen, it's obviously 2 deathmatch losses, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 deathmatch wins. 3 of those are redemption, obviously, but those still are wins against players. That's numbers. Those are good numbers. Those are solid numbers.
And like the names are good too. Like she was the person who beat Justin, and Justin ended up having like a super dominant run in his other org. She beat Zero, who obviously like Zero is a well established as like a good player, and of course she beat you too, X.
It wasn't a 1v1.
Yes,
in either circumstance. Come on.
Yes, that is fair, but it is true.
Dang, X is washed.
I cannot argue with that pick either.
So, I mean, I think this is just an award that's totally up in the air. I genuinely don't have any idea who's gonna win. We didn't even mention Eden, and Eden won what? He won like 4 death matches in Cosmic.
Oh God, that is true.
Yeah, like we just totally skipped over the guy.
I think to play devil's advocate, I think he has a lot of wins. He has less wins than Dems, but he does have a lot of wins. Would you rate him more like as a consistent player than Dems? I can see the argument.
Just for the count, Eden won 3 death matches in Cosmic and 3 death matches in Code Rita, and he similarly has 2 losses like Luna. for another, I think, 6 to 8, right? 6 out of 8 deathmatch wins this year. I personally maybe this is me underrating Dems, but I would be more scared to face Eden in a deathmatch. And that's not to say because Dems is bad. I think there are more things that Eden would crush me at. Well, I think for a lot of different things, I can kind of put up a fight with Dems.
I can see that take.
Idan just he's really like I think Dems sometimes is a 10 and sometimes is a 6, whereas I think Idan is always like a solid 8, where he just is solid good, and sometimes but I feel like a lot of his losses, if you look at the people he's losing to, usually they're good names as well.
Yeah, I mean, Eden's only 2 losses this year are Amaranth and Dems, who are both in contention for Best Deathmatch Player of the Year.
Arguably the top 2, just in terms of
pedigree, yeah. So, I mean, it's a tough year. Awesome and Sixella also are obviously very well accomplished deathmatch players this year. Just a very tough pool to be a part of. All right, I think that's about all we're going to get out of Best Deathmatch Player. Let's move on to Best Social Player, which I assume will be similarly contested.
Yeah, it's really, I find it difficult to judge social player as a metric, I'll be honest. I almost feel like maybe this is not, because I admittedly don't often look at the pair chats, for example. I find it difficult to measure, so I feel like I'm going to take U2's lead a lot more here, because to me, I look at these names and I see a lot of people who I'm like, yeah, I could see these people winning this award, and I don't know if that means that there's a lot of good ones, or if I don't know entirely what really makes a best social player. So that's my take on this.
Yeah, no, I can get us started because I have some takes here. I do agree with you that social is obviously a more nebulous category than main match and deathmatch, but I do think it is a distinct skill. I think sometimes people conflate social player with main match player, and those are correlated, but they are not the same. And just to give an example, I feel like KG is an example of someone who was like objectively extremely good at main matches, right? But I wouldn't quite say had great social. The person I would say had good social in Simply Genius is his partner, Peter, who throughout the org pretty much didn't really upset anyone, was obviously a threat, but maintained enough connections with everyone that he was never really on the out and out. He was probably not going to get DMO'd. While on the other hand, KG did ruffle a lot of feathers because he was super obviously competent, and he was very kind of socially dominant, but not socially super, how do I describe it? Not super socially adaptable in the sense that Peter is. You know, he almost fumbled his final 2 deal with Peter because he was basically a little too paranoid, and Peter wasn't sure if KG was super committed to him or wasn't. Obviously KG was the wrath of the Andre experience, which to be fair is not entirely KG's fault. But it's notable that Andre and Mato pretty much pegged him as a threat day one, and that had dire consequences moving forward. While Peter was able to maintain kind of communication lines with both Andre and Mato until late. So I think that's just an example that shows that sometimes social and main match play isn't entirely aligned. And for that reason, my personal pick out of these names, lots of good names, is Justin. I think Amy also had great social throughout Shardam's Minecraft Genius and Code Redone. But in fact, I would say her social was really, really good in Redone. It was good in SMG, but I think a lot of her late game, involved burning up a lot of the goodwill and good social she built to make sure that she stayed in the lead and to make sure she won those last main matches, which is impressive. And it's good social play in its own right. And I think in other years, I might have given Amy the nod. But Justin was able to do the exact same thing without burning any social ties. He went on a dominant streak of winning main matches all throughout the end game, and he never really did it at the expense of his social, right? He never really had to make a big move to betray anyone. He was always amicable with pretty much everyone. Like earlier, I mentioned that a lot of the opposition to Justin would just falter. But part of that was because Justin made a concerted effort to talk to everyone. And at some point, like, it just turns out like nobody really wants to kill Justin. Like, and I think that's incredible. That's an incredible thing to be able to pull off, especially when everybody knows that you are the number one target, right? And a lot of that just comes down to the fact that Justin made a really strong effort to maintain his ties always. And even when like it was like kind of obvious that Justin and Sixella were kind of a pairing, he made sure that like people like Wimpzilla weren't feeling like left out, right? And was always able to kind of talk his way through things, which I think speaks to how socially in control and socially aware he was about like who was on the outs, what position might be best, like who was most vulnerable to being sweet talked onto his side, like being aware about everybody's position and knowing which points to bring up with which people, I think speaks to his social expertise. And that's personally probably where my vote is going to go.
That's also probably where my vote is.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's very compelling.
I will say the Cake's run, like just on paper, does look very, very good. Like, I did not touch a deathmatch all the way.
Yeah. I mean, part of that is just that she was so good at main matches.
Yeah, but like the ones that she didn't win, like, you know.
That is true.
Like you can argue like, oh, her ally was EC, but you know, you make allies, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
Cake is really good at making allies with the right people as well.
That is definitely a skill of hers.
I mean, you look at how she was able to turn around what happened after episode 5, where she ends up in a result where basically her closest allies are all not getting tokens, and she loses Sean and then Cactus back to back, which is a huge hit to her social influence. Those are like key points in her game, and then she's able to seamlessly transition into, of course, banging the drum for the Kill Amaranth train, and never touches the deathmatch or gets even close to it. Even in episode 9 when Grunkle and Amaranth have tokens and it's D-Pro choosing.
Cake's run is super impressive, and I think the way she made that turnaround work, like you mentioned, Spicy, is just like Cake at work. Like, that's some of her best play. She's always able to stay relevant. She's always able to reach out to people and make sure that, you know, she's not the one getting screwed over. I will say, if we're talking about code redone, personally, I feel like in the early game, like I think Cake really started notching all of her social and even her main match gameplay later on, when she was kind of like pushed to a wall, so to speak, right? Like she really needed to go 200% to make sure that she made finals. Earlier, my personal pick for the best social player in code redone is Amy.
Yeah.
She was able to seamlessly navigate kind of being stuck between the Amaranth Cake thing and maintaining relationships with both, which is a insane tightrope to walk, right? For multiple episodes. And she was able to navigate that very well. And then like she betrays Cake's alliance, right? And is still able to maintain relationships with her to the point that like she makes a big move against Amaranth later. Like she does such a good job at navigating the social landscape and making sure she's always in the middle, but then nobody really catches on to the fact that she's in the middle, right? Everybody is convinced that Amy is on their side. And I think that's very, very impressive. Unfortunately, it gets cut short a little bit due to the Amaranth kill machine. And I don't think her social was nearly as impressive in SMG3, not because her run in SMG3 was bad, but just because her run in Code Redone was so stellar.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, and the other thing is like another case for Justin, I guess, is that like Justin also had pretty good social in SMG3.
Oh, well, to bring up the most pertinent thing, and I think to this extent Major Banshee can be shouted out to a certain degree, but I think he got picked for an earlier deathmatch, or he went into an earlier one, whereas Justin did not. The environment of SMG was very hostile to newbies. that tone was kind of established early on when KG and Razor both were eliminated entirely because they were newbies, basically, and to a certain degree Hot Dog was as well. And so the fact that Justin and Joe, who on paper only had their duo, basically, were able to thread the needle and kind of pass that early harshness towards newbies, I think is incredibly impressive and gives credence to their ability to use social, especially in an environment that was very against them.
Oh, 100%. And I'm sure, like, X, you can speak to this a little bit more as a player. But it did feel like, from a spectator's perspective, that like Joe and Justin were very rarely endangered to go to the DM. Yeah. Right? Obviously, they ended up going in and got eliminated later on, but it felt like they were always kind of safe-ish, which is, like Spicy said, a huge contrast from how some of the other newcomers were treated.
I would generally agree with that statement. No, I'm thinking of one moment where like Justin could have been in trouble. That was when I was EC. Mm-hmm. If it was not a 3-player deathmatch, I actually genuinely would have considered picking Justin.
Right.
Ultimately, I picked Luna because I thought the wackiness of a 3-player deathmatch was like enough to like just justify like taking someone who I know like Grunkle fucking hates, you know?
Okay, yeah, that's fair. So you're saying that maybe their social wasn't as good as the results say.
I mean, like, I still think... I mean, also, like, in order for me to have considered Justin in that position, you know, like, like, both Amy and Zero, like, won TOLs.
Right,
They were my top picks for the deathmatch, and I couldn't pick either of them. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I don't blame Justin, you know, for being, like, basically my 3rd or 4th pick.
Yeah. That's
like that's kind of just like the only world where I see like Justin like going to an earlier deathmatch.
I don't think she should win this award, but I do want to give a shout out to Sixella, who has like black magic powers, especially I think in Genius 1, where like sometimes I felt like maybe this was because I was a spectator, but also Grayson said a similar thing where like, you kind of think Sixella is the reason everything went to shit, and usually it is because she, like, ends up leaking to Austin or whatever, but she's just able to, like, sweet talk her way to safety and be like, yeah, like, you know, it's not my fault, you know, like, I'm so sorry this happened to you, and, like, it worked well enough, like, MC never suspected Sixella, like, she almost got Grayson to DMO someone else, like, clearly her sweet talking was super, super effective, and being able to do that, and obviously her social dominance, like, being the person that was, by the end point, the only person in contact with Awesome, and then also having good relations with like MC and Sleepy, meant that like she was always in pretty good positions going into the end game. So I mean, I want to shout her out. I think, you know, the field is unfortunately a little too tough for me to pick her as the best, but I mean, super, super impressive stuff. Not to even mention her Cosmic run, which is like literally 1 million dodges in a row. Like, I think at some point, Sixella had like the record for like, not the record, but Sixella was close to like being notable enough for being like never winning a main match. Yeah, like what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She took 6 episodes, did nothing. And then only won immunities in Cosmic, and very similarly, she did not really win, I think, in Genius 1. Yeah. Her first win comes in episode 10 of Genius 1. She had played...
That's insane.
She had played 21 episodes at that point. And that was her first victory. So, pretty incredible that she's able to just kind of get carried through that, both because of her deathmatch prowess, but based on the number of dodges she has, also because she's able to kind of sweet talk people into being like, yeah, I'm not the problem.
Despite often being the problem.
Despite often being the problem, yes. So next up is the best rivalry category. This is the category that recognizes the 2 players this year who had the most memorable rivalry throughout their Genius org. So for this, we have 7 different nominees. If neither of you feel very strongly, I can get us started. Okay. So personally, I think there have been I have a top 3 in mind, and out of those, the one that I'm probably gonna be representing here, because I don't know if a lot of people watch Genius Recharged, is the Maji versus Major Banshee rivalry, which I think, well, number one, it's a rivalry that lasted almost the entire org. They were both prominent parts of the org social landscape, and they both made it to Final 3. And of course, like any good rivalry, it resolves with the two of them in the deathmatch against each other, where one person is able to claim victory. And I think the narrative thread that is Maji versus Major Banshee is pretty much the crux of everything that happens in Genius Recharged. They started beefing starting literally from episode 1, where they were kind of working together a little bit, but Maji perceives that Major Banshee was betraying him, which to a degree is accurate, because Major Banshee had other commitments with a book club alliance that earns him a TOL. And obviously Maji feels burned by this, and there's this sort of like disagreement between the two of them and their philosophy about approaching the genius, right? One person is a lot more socially active and willing to betray and use their social connections. The other person is more of a ride or die style, right? Like, if I work with you, I'm going to take you all the way. So not only is there a stylistic difference, I think the thing that makes this rivalry interesting is other than the stylistic difference, they approach the genius very similarly. Like, in the way that they like to lead their alliances with a lot of planning. They're very methodical people who like making spreadsheets and organizing all their data and trying to find a path to victory that way. So it's kind of the situation of they couldn't be more different, but they also couldn't be more similar. And that through line runs throughout the entire season, to the point where they start to realize that they're more similar than they think. So they start working together halfway through the season, being like, hey, I think, we have some differences, but ultimately we both really care about winning, and we both really care about like having fun with these main matches. So they come together, all for it to fall apart in the end game, because Major Banshee once again betrays Maji. And so it's a rivalry that has a beginning, it has a middle, and an end. And of course it ends with the death match between them, which is a duo role match that Major Banshee wins. So I just feel like it's the most complete narrative arc as a rivalry this year. And that's why it's my personal favorite. It's just two people who really care about the genius, who have different ideas of what the genius should reward, and those inevitably cause them to clash. So that's my kind of shill talking to start us off, but I'm sure you guys have different takes on this too.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, that's kind of hard to follow up on.
Yeah, well, I think the only season-long rivalry otherwise that we have in Best Rivalry is Amaranth versus Cake, which I think should at least be brought up. But it's interesting because I saw a lot of opinions about this, and I kind of agree that while it's kind of like the most defining of its org, I would say, because kind of the whole org of Recode Redone, sorry, the abbreviation always
Recode Red.
Because it's Re-CR. That's why I always say Recode Red.
That's true.
The whole storyline of Code Redone, from kind of start to finish, was the fact that Cake and Amaranth are two figures that just cannot exist together. Inherently, the two of them are not able to exist in the same org, and yet due to competence and just good game positioning to a certain degree, neither of them is eliminated until the finals, where of course Cake gets their winning main matches, Amaranth gets their winning death matches. But I personally feel as if that rivalry is a little unsatisfying, as it's, I don't know, I never found that it really reached a satisfying conclusion, and I'm not sure how it would have, because in the end it just was the two of them going up against each other, and Amaranth very definitively won the org. But it certainly is notable. It certainly is something that attracts a lot of attention as a rivalry.
I feel like it lacks like a little bit of the character but with spice.
Yeah.
I agree. I think the issue with that rivalry in particular is it's really good, and obviously it's season defining. They were the respective alliance leaders, so to speak, between two factions. But the most interesting person in that rivalry is neither of them. It's Amy.
Yeah.
And like what makes that rivalry work is the fact that Amy is kind of fanning the flames behind the scenes and working between them and going back and forth. And that's the aspect that makes the rivalry come alive. It's not necessarily something that either player actively does to antagonize the other person. That isn't just, this person is really good at the games, I should get them out. Which is acceptable, but that's kind of all of the rivalries, you know?
Yeah, I was going to say that otherwise, a lot of these here are good moments and good rivalries, but none of them necessarily have the lasting power that you led up with. Like, Grayson versus Morthai is a great early game rivalry.
Oh my god,
but as we
gone too soon.
As we talked about, it's resolved in episode 3. On the flip side, Luna versus Zero is a great late game rivalry, but
no, okay. Hold the fuck up. Oh, okay. If there's I feel like this was just a one episode feud.
Yes. That I was gonna say that it the whole crux is in one insane episode, but it sort of is confined to that specific episode as opposed to some of the others.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm convinced Luna versus Zero is a rivalry.
It got heated.
It got heated.
It did get pretty heated, yeah.
It got heated. It was hella funny, but I made this analogy before. It was like, I feel like the repeated nature of like some of these other rivalries, you know, it's not just a one-time thing. It like happens, like there's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. This one just is all confined in one episode. You do not fight Gary Oak just once and say that's a rivalry, you know? Like,
yeah,
that's just kind of how I feel about it.
Which is also why that's how I feel about Grayson versus Morthai too, which, in my opinion, if that went on for longer than 3 episodes, I think that clears, right? That is incredible. It's two people who are both, like, have a lot of showmanship, who love the game, who have very different ideas about how they want to approach Genius 1. For 3 episodes, it was by far the best rivalry I saw this year. The issue is it's only 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And then it's over.
Yeah.
And Grayson has a lot of leeway after that to kind of, you know, use his social mastery to kind of take control of the game for a while. I just wish it went on longer. And I feel like X was saying, it's difficult for us for me to call something a rivalry when it ends so early. There's not enough content. Like, fighting someone once or twice isn't a rivalry, right? That's just beef. It's hard, but that's kind of my thing on it. Like, I feel pretty similarly about Awesome versus MC. It's a feud that kind of randomly, also, like, with Awesome versus MC, I don't understand. I feel like it's pretty one-sided, you know? I feel like a rivalry has to be two-sided. And that's another one that just kind of like showed up, and then it didn't have like lasting impact, if that makes sense.
Doesn't even have a satisfying ending. Like, the very least a rivalry can do is the 2 players are in the death match at the end, you know?
Yeah, and in that sense, like, a lot of these actually qualify.
Yeah.
I think the only ones that don't is Awesome versus MC and Apple versus Hidden. The other 5 all went face to face in a 1v1, so nobody want to shill for anything else.
No, I mean, like, Luna versus Zero was like my one anti-shill because I know people like love the fuck out of that, and I'm just like, no, by definition, no.
Yeah. Okay. My shill was very effective.
Propaganda.
I just think it was really good. I genuinely think it was the best rivalry this year. in a year that admittedly had a lot of rivalries that kind of flamed out,
Yeah.
right? I think if we look at winners of this award in years past, we have like Amaranth versus Last Bid and Amaranth versus Fruit, which started from day one and went all the way until mid-game, late mid-game, right? Like towards the end game, right? Like kind of Jinno versus Gura energy. Not a lot of that this year, so to speak. So, all right, do we want to move on to best player pair?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the opposite of the best rivalry. Not the opposite. They kind of go hand in hand. The other side of the same coin of best rivalry. It's the two players that were the best pair to watch. We actually have the same amount of nominees for this one. And do either of you want to start us out?
I can, sure, I'll start then. I think there are some good choices here. In particular, I think I'm going to use my time here to shill for both of the SMG3 pairs, because I think they're both pairs that end up having quite a lot of impact and have cool little storylines to them. Joe and Justin both enter as two rookies in Shard Minecraft Genius How to Adapt, and as has been talked about a little bit before, the early game of SMG3 was incredibly hostile to rookies, and the two of them stick together, and in particular, they're able to have an amazing win in Episode 4, Diplomatic Relations, where how that one works is at the end of all of the rounds, there's a set of tokens of life that are given to either side, and at the end of the game, Justin and Joe are the only two people on one side of the main match, meaning that they just get 2 tokens of life automatically, which is as someone who drafted both of them, also very satisfying.
Bias?
And they just ended up working together really well, especially since they didn't have the main match winning power that this other duo had, but they were able to navigate and avoid a lot of DMO choices, all things considered, given, again, both of them were pretty clear rookies, making it all the way to the final 6 of a 16-person org. And then, obviously, I mean, Amy and Luna were kind of the, for lack of a better term, the storyline of How to Adapt, who always were close together to a certain degree, but I think, and don't quote me on this, but I feel like both of them were cognizant of the other because they both know that each other is a good player, and I think maybe didn't want to as freely jump into an alliance. But once Luna came back after being eliminated early game, well, I say early game, it was episode 6, but after coming back from the Redemption House, the two of them basically, especially because Athena goes out, Amy and Luna just become absolutely in lockstep and spend a couple of those late matches really working together well, and it only truly, like, completely falls off the wheels in Final 4, which is when also Luna gets eliminated. But those two both stand out, and I think it helps that Shardrun's Minecraft Genius was so long that it gives more time for those duos to really, like, cement themselves, in my mind, at least.
That makes sense. I kind of want X's take on some of these because he actually played with them.
He played.
So, I don't know. How do you feel about the SMG3 nominations here?
Yeah, I think they check out. There's, like, neither of these, like, I go, huh? What the fuck? Like, from my perspective as a player, and from my perspective as, like, someone who got eliminated and then, like, had a third-person view on them, I do think it checks out. I am more partial to the Joe-Justin pairing, just because, like, they're both, like, you know, two, like, street kids in the middle of a war just trying not to get caught in the crossfire. And they made it work. They, like, scavenged for food, and all that. I think Amy and Luna, like, being more successful, I do feel like they are a pair. Like, they definitely count, but, like, Amy, like, ultimately just, you know, stabbing Luna at the end, and, like, takes some of it away for me.
It was, yeah. That was weird. That was weird, but I feel like almost inevitable with with the two of them, because I do think when two players have a lot of agency, that kind of will happen in the end. It's almost satisfying to see them beef, which is a segue. Because I also, sorry that I'm leading for this one, but I feel like you have to also talk about KG and Peter.
That's kind of
absolutely.
That's kind of the front runner in my mind.
I think definitely in terms of, just because SMG doesn't get as much airtime as Simply Genius, but that is just a very notable duo in general. Someone else can lead the explanation if they want to.
Yeah. So, I mean, that duo has very early beginnings. They're kind of in a 3-person alliance with Ursa Major, sort of informally. There's a lot of other people that they're working with, but it seems somewhat clear to me, at least in the early game, that these three feel most comfortable with each other. And then obviously Ursa gets eliminated at the hands of Aaron.
Rest in power.
And Ursa basically makes a final plea, being like, I know sometimes you guys butt heads. I know sometimes you guys are paranoid about each other because you both recognize that the other is a great player. But please, my death wish, my final wish is for you two to work together. And yes, they do end up working together. They get first and third respectively. They kind of become the dynamic duo of the season. That said, there is a caveat to this, because the relationship is almost fumbled multiple times.
Yeah.
There is a very infamous tier list that Peter posts where KG is in the I don't fucking trust this guy tier because yes, they know that together they work well and they'll probably win a lot, but they also know that the other is by far the quote unquote, they perceive the other as a really strong player. And Peter especially is a little suspicious about the way KG decides to withhold or explain certain information, the way in which he doesn't seem super committed to the pairing. And so KG almost fumbles the partnership. And really they come together because Andre kind of betrays them together and forces them to come together. So there is narrative through line there, certainly. But are they as tight of a pair as Joe and Justin, who are kind of in lockstep for almost the entire season? No, absolutely not. And I think ultimately who your vote goes to depends a lot on what you consider to be the best when it comes to player pairs. Are you someone who really cares about narratives and coming together? Are you someone who just really cares about how well they work together as a pairing? I feel like there's a bit of a ideological difference in how you can approach this one, and I'm personally unsure. I think there isn't a clear-cut answer here.
My personal opinion is I think all of that just adds to their dynamic, and I feel like the results kind of show they did work well together, ultimately. So I think it kind of has both. This pairing to me. I feel like yes, they were wary of each other. They were butting heads at first. It was almost fumbled. I think Amy stabbing Luna made that feel it was almost kind of transactional in a way. Or the result made me feel that way, whereas KG and Peter being wary of each other, even if they might have eventually stabbed each other, I feel like their dynamics throughout, it made it feel like they were working together, but the partnership was always defined as these two are strong players. They are both aware, from start to finish. They were both wary and the front runners of the season, but they chose to work together after a certain point. I think because it was defined as that from the start, I think the KG almost messing it up for the both of them makes it I think it adds to it to me. I don't take away points on like I would Amy Luna.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess Spicy, you might have some more insight into this, but I also don't think KG and Peter necessarily betrayed each other, right? When it came to Simpler Genius, it just kind of became a position where one of them is gonna win and the other isn't, and so they just said, "Hey, let's figure out, let's fight."
That was really, I just mean more the up and down, and the also the fact that they. A lot of their duo was kind of, you brought it up, it was kind of only enforced as an anti-Andre. I think in a world where Andre isn't in the org, they probably devolve a lot quicker, and really it's just ultimately that they could, the best thing to make people bond is an open enemy. And I think there was a lot of respect there, but I think it also, admittedly, for me, is a little bit hurt by the fact that it is a shorter duo, ultimately. The duo forms after episode 2 officially, and kind of only lasts for 4 episodes, and so it's a little... I still think... I think it's impossible to ignore, and I think if we're playing the odds here, it more than likely is going to win, but I personally am probably more likely to be giving my nods to the SMGs.
Yeah, that makes sense. Speaking of Andre, I think, this isn't really relevant because they didn't make the final cut, but I'm surprised nobody did Andre plus Motto, which I think was, kind of the other iconic duo of that org. So... do we want to talk about the elephant in the room, or do we just want to move on?
I think, just to prevent them from being like, what the fuck, bro? I think we should, mention it, at least say why we're not as big on it.
I genuinely don't know what the elephant is.
Is it Awesome Sixella?
Yeah, if we're talking success, that is probably the... Cage, the issue with KG and Peter is kind of similar to what Spicy said in that their org is shorter. And so by nature, their pairing lasted less, right?
Yeah, when you put it, when you frame it as, it lasted 4 episodes, I see your point, but it didn't feel that way, just because, percentage of the season-wise, that's basically the whole season.
Yeah. But Awesome and Sixella obviously worked together episode 1 through episode 11, and they were very, very successful.
Yeah, I think the issue with that one for me is it wasn't as dynamic.
A duo has to be enjoyable to watch.
I feel like Sixella kind of carries that pair, Yeah,
it's true. It's true.
Not necessarily in terms of gameplay, but in terms of content.
Yeah. Even to some degree in gameplay,
yeah, she did the social heavy lifting.
Yeah. I'll be the first to admit that, obviously, it wasn't like Awesome was dead weight. He did a lot of the strategic planning, especially as the player counts got smaller. But all of that strategic planning only works if you know everybody's submission. And the person who's facilitating that is Sixella, who's managing, all the social threads, and keeping her alliance with Awesome out of the loop, almost intentionally painting him as a lone wolf.
Yeah.
But it also means that Awesome barely talked with anyone else, really. It feels very not dynamic. I think not dynamic is the right way to describe it.
I agree. It's not that Awesome didn't pull his weight, because there is value in strategic planning, just as much as there's value in social maneuvering, but I think it's more fun to watch someone just kind of go around talking to people, making deals, try to figure out the social situation, than it is to watch someone just sit there alone in a room with a calculator.
It's fair enough. Okay, I think that actually segues nicely into our next category, which is Best Player Alliance, because a lot of these names show up again over here. And I'm wondering if the Awesome Sixella player pair, we've talked at length about that, how do we feel about the Awesome Sixella alliance plus Tia? Like,
So I have to quickly get this out here because truthfully I mute all alliance channels. So I never look at them. I have never looked at them ever. And so I'm going to be furniture here, but enjoy, discuss.
So I would like to vote for XNimus Spicy as best player pair 2025 because we are a pair of chairs right now.
okay, so I have to carry this conversation.
Welcome to Marcer's TED Talk, Best Player Alliance Edition.
So I do think I prefer Small Headquarters as an alliance over the player pair of Awesome and Sixella. And I think the difference is pretty subtle, but very important nonetheless. Because, first of all, there is a third person there, and Tiak is awesome and is one of the focal points in the early part of Genius 1. And her and Sixella's duo dynamic is very fun and super interesting. And Awesome is there too, and Awesome does do a lot of the strategic planning. So it feels more functional as a group. It doesn't so much as feel like, oh, there's one person sitting in a room with a calculator and two other people. It feels more like the alliance has purpose and is clearly divided into these are our roles, which I like a lot better. It also comes across as more natural. There are legitimate gameplay reasons that happen that lead to this alliance ultimately being the power alliance of Genius 1. For those of you who don't know, Tiak is actually on this list twice, right? She's both a part of Operation Overthrow and Small Headquarters, and there is a point in the mid-game of Genius 1 where Tiak has to make a decision. She has to choose which alliance she prioritizes, and the way she navigates that decision and ultimately decides to pick Small Headquarters, I think is a highlight of the org for me. And that really adds to the appeal of that alliance, because she has to... What essentially happens is there is this massive, awesome MC beef, right? And up until this point, Tiak has managed to just weave through the middle and make sure that both alliances are satisfied. That is no longer possible, right? MC is tanking for elimination candidate, and he has been very public and upfront that he will choose Awesome no matter what. So Tiak has to make a decision. What makes this worse is that Tiak is also in line to actually win the main match. So she is the only person who can save Awesome. She either chooses to token, someone else like Sleepy or Bradley or Sixella and let Awesome die, or go to the deathmatch at least, or she very publicly chooses to save Awesome and breaks her other alliance. And what I'm basically trying to say is that Tiak is really what makes this alliance interesting, because she basically comes to the conclusion that, okay, I think Awesome and Sixella are more important to me right now than MC and Sleepy, because Sixella is more socially proactive, Awesome seems like the stronger DM player that I don't want to upset, and on top of that, MC is like really creeping me out by wanting to kill Awesome at no matter the cost, right? She's like, this is a little weird. But ultimately, that decision has massive ramifications on the rest of the org. MC ends up DMOing someone else, but survives. But there's this undercurrent of resentment and kind of like, we've chosen sides. And those sides define the entire org. We have MC and Brat or Grayson on one side. We have Awesome, Sixella, and Tiak on the other. We have Sleepy, who is trying to figure out how they need to coexist between Tiak and MC, who they both want to work with. So, like, Small Headquarters to me is more natural, it's more interesting, it's more dynamic, and it's also more fundamental to the landscape of the org. More so than just a hidden F2 where one person is doing all the social work and the other person is doing all the strategy work. It feels more balanced and it feels more important. So, like, personally, I see the appeal of Small Headquarters a lot more. That said, I think there's some other good nominations or nominees in this category. The one that comes to mind immediately is the one that is most successful. The alliance that ended with first, second, and third place. P. Santa's Helpers. Small headquarters, on the other hand, has first, third, and sixth, right? They were an important part. The actions that that alliance made is crucial to everything that happens in the org, including culminating in Tiak's eventual early elimination or comparatively early elimination. But Peace Antis Helpers is equally as crucial to the org that it is part of, and it is objectively more successful. They are able to get their entire alliance to Final 3. And the story of that one, just to kind of give everybody both sides of the page here, is this alliance is, as you can notice, has a best rivalry nominee in it.
Yeah.
It's Maji and Major Banshee coming together. Like I was talking earlier, this alliance forms and Maji and Major Banshee basically realize, oh, we're kind of the same person, except we're really not, but we're also the same person. And I think it would be really nice if we put aside our differences and try to work together for once, right? It's kind of like the episode where Goku and Vegeta decide to work together or whatever, right? Like, and it turns out that's extremely successful when you have two, insane, addicted to spreadsheets people working together, socialing, and trying to figure out what the win condition is. It works extremely, extremely well. And the way Apple figures into this equation is she's kind of the social backbone and also the emotional core of the alliance, because Maji is really close to Apple. Apple is really, and Major Banshee is also really close to Apple. So she kind of glues the alliance together, and she is also the one who is, kind of more socially connected with everyone else and is able to kind of survey the other alliances. So they also work extremely well, and as soon as this alliance forms, it pretty much just works wonders. Like, everything they want to happen just happens, which eventually culminates in them all making Final 3. But if I were to detract from this alliance, Small Headquarters is an alliance that pretty much worked lock in step from the moment Tiak decided to betray MC until the alliance had to be dissolved, right? And even before then, Tiak was actively helping Awesome and Sixella. Like, she made an active decision to be like, I want to save everybody in both of my alliances. So they pretty much always work together. Peace Antis Helpers forms late. It forms towards the mid-game because that's the point when Maji realizes, hey, maybe we need to work together. And Major Banshee realizes, hey, maybe we will work together. And it equally also breaks up earlier because Major Banshee explicitly betrays Maji in Final 5 so that he can be safe. And Maji is EC, right? So it's an alliance that is super effective, but is far, far shorter in duration because ultimately, you're kind of putting together two people who are a little bit like oil and water. So when it works, and when it doesn't, it doesn't. It has very high highs and very low lows. And ultimately, them all making Final 3 together is less a testament to the alliance's strength and more so just the individual deathmatch abilities of the players, right? Because Maji and Major Banshee both win a deathmatch to make it to Final 3. And they don't really work together after Major Banshee betrays Maji. So it's this like kind of complex relationship that defines that alliance. And so you have like two very successful alliances that are the bedrock of their respective orgs, but they also couldn't be any more different. One is kind of dies early, but they always work together. And we have on the other side, we have something that is more short term, that works beautifully, but it also explodes as soon as the first opportunity arises. Those are my top two. Personally, Summer Camp is kind of a meme because that's the one that Andre intentionally betrayed the entire time. Like that alliance was never really real. So those are the two that I'm kind of debating in my mind every day as I'm trying to figure out which one is better. Yeah, I don't know. I just, yeah. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Apparently, I'm the only one who has an opinion on this one.
Yeah, I mean, like, alliances are like, I don't know. I tend to be less invested the more people are involved. But, I will say, based on this description, I am more partial to Small Headquarters. I don't know. I feel like it caused drama. This alliance was the reason why a hard decision was made that had ramifications, and I think like I don't know, I do kind of I relate to that dynamic as a player, but also I just think that is more like it's the spicier pick to me, rather like instead of
Haha, spicy.
instead of just 3 people, like they did well, they played their parts, but you can also kind of say the same about Awesome, Sixel, Tiak, maybe to a lesser degree, but I don't know. I thought it was more dynamic, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I remember the main match where Tiak was literally like, I kind of don't want to win, so I don't have to make this decision. And doing so and kind of permanently directing the way the org flow goes, because if she doesn't do it, then we get MC versus Awesome in episode 5, and kind of that, the whole late game of Genius 1 changes. That I would say that also stands out to me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, think about that. That's 4th and 1st place, and one of them was going to get 10th or 9th. That is a drastic change, a drastic timeline shift. So
it also helps that like eventually MC proceeds to pick Tiak for the deathmatch later on.
Right. Yeah.
And it's also funny because Awesome was immune then as well.
Whoopsies.
Uh-oh. But yeah, I mean, it ultimately, kind of bites Tiak, because, that DMO was definitely motivated by the fact that, MC couldn't get over the fact that his ally chose to prioritize someone else over him. And I totally understand both sides of the coin here, but it ultimately, small headquarters is essential to how Genius 1 ultimately plays out.
I just want to say, jump crouch hit, I don't think it was like a real thing like throughout like for more than an episode. I know they had like individual like relations with each other, but I just want to say the name, very good name. It stems from their signaling system, where they would jump, crouch, or hit to basically say, hey, I'm doing this option, I'm doing option A, B, or C, which I thought was cute. I just thought it was worth pointing out.
Oh, that's definitely worth pointing out. I also heard that it was mostly an alliance that lasted like 1 or 2 episodes, so definitely kind of loses out to some of the other ones here.
Yeah, no, it's I just like the name. Don't vote for this. I just like the name.
it's a good name. All right. I think we're gonna hear 8maybe some arguing here. I think we might have very different perspectives on this next category. We've come to most robbed player. There's a long list of names here.
Yeah.
But honestly, a lot of these, I don't know.
A lot of them aren't robbed, at least in my opinion. A lot, like, personally, I feel like a good player gets eliminated later is not a robbery.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially in a year that has seen some, let's just say, errors that have caused eliminations.
Yeah, Sixella is a robbery to the spectators.
True.
I think I'm like a little upset because when I got eliminated, I was like, I mean, I guess this was the craziest elimination. I probably win most robbed, and then as the weeks, the months went by, I went, okay, I mean, I guess I'm 2nd. Oh wait, I guess I'm 3rd, and then Jifla happened. I'm like, I guess I'm 4th. My personal take is I'm 4th on this list. Fuck my life.
Okay. Me personally, I think there are 4 nominations worth discussing. I can get us started for one of these, because I know XNimus and I have talked about this before, but on paper, I think KG's elimination is the definition of a textbook robbery. Because, for those of you who don't know, KG was playing a deathmatch. It was a partner deathmatch against Username, and Username's partner, who was Reds. And Shard rules that, so it's a partner match where you have to try to have as many moves as possible. You're a chessboard, you're knights, and you try to make as many knights moves as possible before you run out of moves, right? And Shardrin rules that KG's partner doesn't have any more moves and eliminates him on the spot. Nobody notices this mistake. The game continues, and ultimately KG loses. Shard notices that this mistake occurs while rewatching footage multiple days later, and basically goes, oh, is this consequential? And he realizes that, yes, it is actually extremely consequential, because by this point the game was closer towards ending, and if KG's partner had like one legal move, if KG's partner was allowed to make that one legal move, Username has no way to win. It is impossible. In fact, to illustrate his point, the tile that Username ultimately used to win the game, the final tile he landed on to win over KG, is the one that KG's partner would have claimed much, much earlier. So KG is eliminated when he shouldn't be. Now, with that said, there are multiple caveats here, right? Number one, Shard decides to fix this issue by rerunning the deathmatch. He says, okay, we're going to scrap that deathmatch. We're going to do it again because there was a clear mistake. Obviously, this introduces its own inequities, right? KG and Username have to play a game that they've already seen before. That obviously changes the dynamic of how someone approaches that game. It also can no longer be a partner deathmatch because the partners have scheduling issues, so it's just the 1v1. That also changes things, and ultimately KG is re-eliminated. And then the second caveat is that this all happened in Redemption House. Basically, KG had already lost the deathmatch earlier, and this was his opportunity to get a second chance. And he was robbed of the second chance, but also kind of not really, because they gave him a third chance, essentially, right? That said, on paper, in my opinion, the fact that he was eliminated, he had to stew in that elimination, and then he had to kind of hastily come back and do something, is mentally very, very taxing. And I personally think, and Shard also thinks this for what it's worth, right? I personally think KG is the most robbed player this year because he should have won that deathmatch, and he didn't. Mechanically, he should have won, and he didn't. And that is a massive, massive host error. So that's my piece. But I think both of you have different people in mind. So I will open the floor.
Okay, well, I think, for one, KG does deserve the win, to be clear. I think he is undoubtedly robbed of, with air quotes, fair deathmatch. I don't know, I don't take the rematch happening away from the robbery, personally. I feel like he should have won. The rematch was, a chance to kind of make it so we can all look at this in hindsight, well, okay, it all worked out in the end. But, just because he got the rematch and lost, fair and square during the rematch, I don't think that takes away from the robbery. He the rematch should not have happened. He should just, won. In an ideal world. That being said, I don't know, the fact that it was just, a redemption match. And it's not even a redemption match to get back in the game. It's, a redemption match to move on to the next episode of the Redemption House. Which had a series of, 3 death matches played in order to finally get back into the game. To me, that takes away a lot of it. But in terms of, this is, one of 2, instances of, this was just an egregious error by a host, which does give it a lot of points for this category. That being said, I don't know. I'll have to sleep on this one. I think it's I think it wins. It's just not as much of a sweep as I feel like people make it out to be. At least in my mind, it's not as much of a sweep. I think
yeah, what's the one you think it should kind of push it for a challenge.
So okay, before I get to that, because I did have one in mind, but then the Jiffa thing happened. Which I feel, okay, objectively, I do feel like the Jiffa thing is mechanically the most egregious thing. Because
yes, I agree.
It is the same instance, it's the same situation as KG, where the host makes an error that Jiffa, like, he should have undoubtedly won, but instead he overwhelmingly lost. When he should have overwhelmingly lost, or won, because they were playing Kyo Hop, and for some reason the host just didn't check like the right number of hops on the board, so every time Jiffa called Kyo, the host just went, oh wait, there are still hops on the board when there weren't. So he lost points instead of gaining 3, and this happened like for basically every board that he called. And for some reason, like this situation was just never like fixed during the match. I do feel like Jiffa just would have won that just mechanically. Even if, you know, his brain just like died in the later round. I think like the score differential was too big for a reasonable catch up to happen, you know. That being said, it was a speed org. It was a mini. The host just did not seem to take it as seriously as, you know, other orgs.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if I can quickly cut in, I am never voting for the Jiffa moment. I also don't know a lot about the Jiffa moment, but it's like, I would feel mad if I got robbed from an org and some one day Andy came out and was like, no, this is the real most robbed one. It's like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, you barely even go here.
Yeah. I do agree.
Sorry, I have other antagonistic things to say, but I want to let you.
I think the fact that like the stakes were lower on this one just takes a lot away from it.
Yeah, and I think it's difficult to compare the sort of like despair and distraught you feel when you've put, you know, probably weeks, months worth of effort, and then it all kind of breaks apart because of things that are completely out of your control, versus you have been playing for what, like 4 hours, and, you know, something happens. Like, the stakes are pretty important to me, because the question is, who was the most robbed, right? It's not who had the most egregious host error. And I think it's difficult to be robbed from something where the stakes were inherently much lower. Like, it's still a robbery, but when I'm trying to compare quantitatively and qualitatively, I think it's difficult for me to compare that favorably to someone who got robbed out of an experience that they were a part of for months and maybe should have been part of for many more months, right?
Yeah. To that point, you know, if where's the Weekend Genius 4 nom? Yeah, I mean, like, if I wanted to win this award, I could get it like if like host error was all it took to win this award, and I really wanted to win this award, I would get, like, you know, 2 friends, one to play against me, one to host and rig the deathmatch against me, and, you know, play a deathmatch for fun, and then be like, hey, I was robbed of this win.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, Marcer, because I feel like we've talked about this a little bit before, and I think the two of us have slightly different inherent views on how we view this category in general.
Yeah.
Because I tend to not view it as, let's give a little award to somebody who had, like, objectively something like this happen. Whereas I almost look at it more subjectively of who, like, was maybe in a good position and through aspects outside of their control found themselves in a bad place, or did well and then just stuff snowballed. So for me, when I look at this category, I look at Sean in Code Redone as one of the ones who I'm likely to vote for. And this is as someone who admittedly did not spectate Code Redone as much as some of these others. But I was at least there for the main match where Sean was literally faced with a game entitled The Monarch Making Game, where it was very much a very quick snowball that partially had to do with one of the 4 members of this doomed alliance, which was Adon, Cake, Sean, and Cactus, having activity issues.
Yes.
Jumping up and down in activity, and I think missing a submission that would have been pivotal, but again, don't quote me on that because
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And in the end, I don't remember entirely what made Sean the EC, but he takes the fall, and obviously is never going to DMO Cake because that would be stupid. Ends up not choosing Cactus, which I think we all agree in hindsight is a mistake. Chooses Adon instead, and I think, again, I'm saying this as somebody who knows the vague beats but not the intricate details. I think he also has some bones with how the death match was chosen as well, or something like that.
Yes.
I don't know if that's relevant to this argument, but that just in general, I think, if I look at just unfortunate, if I see the thing that I have the most sympathy for, that I'm like, this is the most unfortunate turn of events, for me, it's Sean and Code Redone.
I do think it is really unfortunate. The inactivity ultimately influencing the result was really, really bad. And the other issue is that Cactus, they just disappeared, so Sean didn't even know that they were, like, he wasn't even informed that they were inactive, right? So he couldn't make an informed decision on, whether I should DMO this person or not. It just kind of came down to, like, these 2 people I've worked with. It's kind of weird that one of them isn't talking so much, though, you know?
Yeah.
So, that said, I have a hard time saying that Sean is quote-unquote robbed. Because even within so first of all, Spicy, you and I have talked about the differences we have about this category, but even within the confines of the main match, it's difficult for me to say Sean was robbed because of 2 important reasons. Number one, the reason he found himself at the bottom of the totem pole was ultimately his fault. He was inflexible in his alliance dealings. He chose to stick by Cake. And then, of course, Amy betrayed Sean and Cake. And the reason Sean was at the bottom instead of Cake was that Sean's submission was way easier to tank. He kind of played it very, like, loose and was like, yeah, I trust you, like, whatever, it'll be fine. And of course, that didn't work out. Amy betrayed Sean, Cake, and Edan and Cactus for Amaranth and his alliance. And so Sean finds himself at the bottom before Cactus's inactivity really becomes a major problem. And then Sean is already at the bottom, and basically Cake forms a plan, is like, okay, it is impossible for us to rescue Sean. This is just too difficult. What we can do, however, is push one of the opposing alliance's members down so that Sean can DMO them. Because the worst case scenario, obviously, in a situation like this, is that the entire opposing alliance is immune, which is something that has a tendency to happen a lot in Code Redem because it hands out tokens like candy. So Cake has this plan with Sean and Edan where they're like, okay, what we can do is either D-Pro or Grunkle is going to be vulnerable. We can drag them down so that Sean can choose one of them, and we can all choose to help Sean. The issue is, this submission crucially relies on Cactus to submit anything at all. And this obviously doesn't happen. And ultimately, Cactus's submission is randomized. And this makes it impossible at that point for Cake and Sean and their alliance to do anything. It's hopeless. It's just going to be them not immune, and Sean has to kill someone or choose someone to kill that he has worked with this match, which I think is really unfortunate. And I understand that that's like super upsetting. I was personally also upset because you never want to hear that, oh, you lost out on your like major opportunity to make this game interesting because someone just didn't show up for multiple times. Like we extended the deadline, we pinged them, we did everything and they didn't show up, right? So it is super unfortunate. At the same time, Sean was doomed regardless. The difference from the inactive submission is not Sean surviving versus Sean not. The difference is Sean getting to choose who he wants to pick. He was always going to end up in the deathmatch no matter what. And then, of course, he also lost that deathmatch. So, just within the confines of the main match, like, it is super frustrating. And I do think he deserves to be here. He's in my, like, top 4 names, right? But it's kind of difficult to justify when he ultimately ended up in last place due to a combination of his own bad play and his opponent's good play, particularly Amy, who just ran the floor with that main match. So that's kind of my take on it, unfortunately.
I see. He was in my top 4 until Jiffa happened. Anyway, so but if we remove Jiffa, he's also in my top 4. That being said, I do think if anything, like, had Sean won, this is more of a robbery to whoever he had to DMO.
I disagree with that. But I think the two of you maybe view most robbed in a more analytical way than I do.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I think you're like almost, again, you're trying to quantify it. Whereas for me, it's a category that is more based on, like, you know, where they were standing beforehand, where they're standing after.
I do agree with, like, where they were standing beforehand matters. Like, you know, like, that's also why I, like, knocked points away from KG, right? Because he was kind of in the pits at that point.
He was eliminated. He was in the redemption house.
Yeah, he shouldn't have even had that chance in a normal org.
Yeah. But Sean was, you know, like he was in a good spot, but he was also doomed to be EC regardless. It's just a matter of his opponent, which I do feel like if Eden had lost that DM, I do feel like it is more of a robbery to Eden. I can see, like, there being a better case for Eden. Like, just in terms of, like, this was crazy, you should not have been in the deathmatch to begin with. Or it's like, I can't even say you should not have been in the deathmatch to, like, with regards to Sean. I do feel like, you know, to a similar point, I feel like the things that Sean has going for him for this category, I do feel like applies to Neptune, because she ultimately ends up EC in the first episode of Genius Recharge. She ends up EC because her ally just doesn't submit on the last round or some shit like that. Because of school, or she can't have her phone up. She can't have her phone in school.
The nefarious school.
Oh, fuck education. But
I guess we're keeping that in.
Fuck education. I'm trying to be a genius. But yeah, it's like you know, it's like kind of the same situation with Cactus, right? The same thing kind of happens with Neptune, except Neptune, it's to avoid EC. It's a matter of Neptune becomes EC or isn't EC. And if Neptune avoids EC, she does not go to the deathmatch. Like,
yes.
Or at least it's very likely she does not get picked for the deathmatch.
I'm like 99% certain nobody in the cast DMOs her.
Yeah.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I know she ends up like playing a fair deathmatch, loses it fair and square, but she should not have been in that deathmatch. She, in that one episode alone, she seemed to be in a good spot. You know, to at least, like, she should have been a lock for episode 2, right? And, you know, who knows what could have happened episode 2 onwards, right? I think that's a major point against her. Like, it happens in episode 1. We don't know, but, like, I think, like, we've seen enough whims to know, you know, socially she's consistent, you know?
Yes.
I feel like we know enough to, you know, say, hey, if you're betting on anyone to make it past episode 2, and episode 3, I think Wims is a safe bet, or Neptune is a safe bet. You know?
Yeah. I mean, if we're talking a little bit about what Spicy was talking about earlier, their previous position and the events that occurred and how that affected their position, Wims had, I think, arguably the best social in episode 1. And she was connected with, you know, she had her sort of like core alliance of Asu, Maji, and Apple, but she was also reaching out to people like Jaw or Major Banshee and was making sure to check in on everyone and do like her normal Neptune stuff, right? And it just all immediately fell apart because of one mistake. She went from 100 to 0 just like that, and it was not anything she could have controlled, right? It was a mistake that her ally had made. And, you know, my personal opinion is that if someone missubmits like that, especially the other thing about this is Code Redone, it was like a 9-round main match, right? It was very long. In Genius Recharge, this is 3 rounds. If you don't submit for one of those rounds, it's a third of the game. You miss a third of the game. And so in a position like that, I feel like the person who should be punished for not submitting is the person who didn't submit, you know? But that did not happen. It just made her like unable to win a token of life, which is not something that affects her at all because, you know, the eventual EC is her close ally. She pretty much suffered no repercussions, or in fact got saved by not submitting because it made her ally ECM meant that she was never going to end up in the deathmatch, which is just super unfortunate. You just go from, oh, I'm really socially good to like, wait, why did I lose? Did someone betray me? No, nobody betrayed you. Someone just forgot. And I feel like that has to just be an awful, awful feeling.
Yeah,
So.
I will say, like, if we're talking about like if we're talking about good before after, I do think like me being on this list, it like there's a big like before after from what I heard after I got out.
It's true. You were number 1 in the power rankings, I think, for the 3rd week in a row at that point.
Yeah,
something like
but
that.
I do think like in terms of like the mauled factor, I like, you know, sometimes you get an unwinnable deathmatch. It happens in the Genius, right? Like that's just the nature of the game. Like you get game of the week, and sometimes game of the week does not click with you, or it clicks with your opponent like far better than it does with you. Like if an ally just like didn't submit, it's not even that they betrayed. It's not even that they meant to do it. You know, if they just didn't, if they were just incompetent. Like, they could not do what... Okay, it's not fair to call them incompetent for not missing school. But, you know, if they just submitted, like...
Yeah.
If they just did the plan, right? I would not be in this mess. Like, just feels worse. It feels way worse. I would fucking maul. I would lose my shit.
Yeah.
And so, that's why Neptune, like, is at the very least, a close second for this award, in my opinion.
You know what the saddest thing is?
What is the saddest thing?
So Asu didn't submit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And charge pinged her like twice or whatever, 3 times.
Uh-huh.
She showed up like 15 minutes later and said, "Oh, my class just ended."
That's so rough. It's also one thing if like there was an active intent to like, oh, if Wims is EC, then I'm safe. I'm gonna like not submit, play it off, like whatever, right? I think that's just you got outplayed or you got betrayed rather than a robbery. But I think the fact that it should I do also want to mention I rewatched footage for SMG3. I'm transitioning into myself. I do feel somewhat compelled to talk about this. I rewatched footage and it's a 3-way deathmatch. Again, with me, Luna, and Grunkle, 2 people get eliminated in that deathmatch. It's also the only 3-way deathmatch that happens. In the main set, fucking god awful fuck ass timing. Where was I?
You should let it out, man.
Yeah, no. I rewatched the footage. I'm just like I after I made my pick and Shard like asks the three of us, "Are you good to do the deathmatch?" We all say yes, and we're just kind of waiting for the deathmatch to get set up. Like I just like look at Luna, I look at Grunkle, and I'm like, you know, if I lose this is a respectable loss, and I still do feel this way. They are two strong players. And then Grunkle just goes. Grunkle proceeds to say, I mean, like, if I lose this, I'm most robbed, so.
Oh my god.
You know, you can't lose.
Oh
and
my
and I rewatched that footage. I'm like, wow. I sure wonder why I'm not most robbed. I lost this fucking game. Anyway. That's just, you know, I have to let that out. I had this expectation given to me by Grunkle Squeaky, and it expectation it differs heavily from reality.
Huh.
Anyway,
How
vote for
interesting.
KG, vote for Neptune. That's all I have to say. A thumbs
Don't
up.
do that. Don't do that. Don't listen to them.
What the
That's-
fuck?
I will say to kind of aid Spicy's point a little bit about Sean. If we're looking at epilogues, right? Part of the reason the Sean elimination feels extra bad is Cactus is eliminated for inactivity right after.
Yeah.
She misses like 3-4 more deadlines. We ping her pretty consistently, and then it comes to our attention that she is active in other servers. So she is just ignoring the server, and it just leaves a really bitter taste in your mouth, you know,
Yeah.
that was the reason Sean got eliminated.
That
was part of the reason he got eliminated.
I think also, like, another thing that adds to the, like, mauled factor is before this point, I think, like, 2 episodes prior, right, Cactus was in the deathmatch, and instead of playing out, like, one of the actual, like, death matches, the live death matches, in the pool, like, because of, like, heavy scheduling issues, they had to play a non-live, and it was against Ben.
Where's Ben? Where's Ben in this category?
Oh my god.
Yeah, I do think
Yeah.
Ben should probably be in this category. I agree.
Like, Ben lost to this. It's pretty upsetting, yeah.
Fun fact, XNimus, Ben was the person who was supposed to be in Code Black, but scheduling, we were not confident that he would show up on Saturdays. So that's a
So you want me to cut that out, or should I just keep
I didn't see.
that?
I'm entirely. It's fine if it's a reward for people who actually listen to this, or you can cut it out. I'm fine either way.
No, we should keep it in. In fact, if you're listening right now, you know, at, I don't know, an hour into this recording, you should type in Genius Awards 2025 channel. Wow. Banana.
Yes, yeah, but don't say anything else. Keep it a secret.
Yeah, just say wow, banana.
Well, okay.
And that's how I know you're real.
I feel like people at that, like, there will be I feel like that's susceptible to, like, just some funny people just copying that without knowing the context.
Okay, so what else should they say then? X, you give a suggestion.
Wow, damn. See,
But
it's more
that's too-
general. It's more general. It's less copy pastable.
But that's too generic. Like,
Well, okay,
Somebody's gonna
I don't.
say it, and we're gonna be like, "Oh, you know." They're like, "What?"
okay, how about Spicy? You give a suggestion.
Wow, that player sure was robbed.
Yeah, we
You know
can
what?
go with that.
Yeah, no, that works. Yep. There's been a lot of robberies this year, but it's also pretty difficult, I think, to say a definitive person, because I think every situation has like multiple layers, and there's something that kind of caveats it, or there's like a but then, right? So personally, I don't think I would be upset if any of the names we brought up, basically the 5 people we brought up, won. So all right, this is our final player award, ending with a bang. Most interesting player to spectate. Who was the most fun to watch?
Yeah, I'm on the Amy train for this one.
You're on the Amy train.
I'm on the Amy
All
train.
right, elaborate.
Yeah, I feel like she, you know, I think she hella popped off this year, you know, and she had dynamic gameplay across 2 orgs. She played well, and dynamic, which is, you know, well and boring is like kind of easy to do, or relatively more easy, but like to make it interesting is like way harder. I also believe like just knowing her background when it comes to the genius, you know, like someone who's like never made it past the halfway point, never won a death match across like 6 orgs or whatever, like to finally like, you know, have the run of a lifetime, and like just pop off, and in multiple orgs too, I think just added to it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's especially given that if you look at some of her history, this was a big season for her changing some of that. And we're definitely, I think when we go into moments, Amy is going to be one of the main person we're talking about, looking at some of them jumping ahead. She has a lot of ones there, which I think absolutely makes sense. She was somebody who was, I think especially if you're judging interesting based on dynamic gameplay, Amy's giving you some of the most of that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Now on the flip side, if you're judging interesting as in just notable, I am all in on the Andre train.
Yeah, talk about it.
Fair. It's very
Andre,
fair.
somebody who basically became the arc villain of an org, which is not something you see very often, especially not as entertainingly as him, who kind of somebody was who had only joined Discord for the sake of this org, had never done any genius orgs, had never been on Discord. All of a sudden has this insane episode 4, which we will of course be talking about, where he basically betrays multiple people to get the most insane win possible, very definitively, then immediately notating who his co-conspirator was in front of everybody by giving a token of life, and then just kind of aura farming for the next 2 episodes, where he ends up in episode 6 is the elimination candidate, and instead of picking the person he's been beefing with the whole season, he picks somebody else because he doesn't want to potentially give KG all like marked cells on the spreadsheet, because so far he had only won main matches or death matches. And so the fact that he was like, I'm not gonna pick you, so you have this blank cell, is insane. What the fuck?
You know the funniest part?
Yeah.
The funniest part is KG actually cared.
Of course KG cared.
Oh, wait, okay. I distinctly remember just like reading something like that was pointed out, like someone joked about it, haha, you have a blank, fucking loser, and KG was like, yeah, this made me sad. And then like I see Model Thoughts channel, and like she like forwards that message into her thoughts channel and goes like, this dodge is the only reason why I'm considering like whether or not to give you my item or my support. It's so funny.
So amazing. Yeah, I think, admittedly, I definitely am more inclined to vote based off of sort of spectacle and humor, because I think looking through here, there are a lot of players who it's worth talking about just like Amy, you know, Magi and Sixella are the 2 that jump out to me past that, and maybe you 2 can go into that more if you want to. But for me, when I see most interesting player to spectate, I think of who just brought me the most joy and enjoyment. And Andre, especially being a rookie who came onto the scene and just became a total heel for the whole org, was great.
No, that dude is incredible. That was some prime content. I will say, I think it would be a miss to not talk about Sixella here.
I agree.
Because, in my opinion, maybe she doesn't reach the dynamic highs of Amy, and she doesn't reach the chaos, like complete villainy of Andre, but she is like both of those at the same time. She obviously made it very far. She was a very socially competent player but she also did some fuck ass shit during Genius 1. So most importantly, obviously, she had an entire self-crisis during episode 2 where she has a whole alliance that is dedicated to just saving her. And she decides that, nah, I'm not going to do that. I want to go to the deathmatch. And all because she talked to the guy who didn't like her and was like, actually, this guy's okay. I feel bad sending him to the deathmatch. I could do it. I can test my skills.
I can't get over that.
Obviously, like, insane moment. And then she goes completely unpunished. She wins the deathmatch against poor Heater and goes on an incredible run. But that sort of gameplay style of like making chaotic moves that somehow pan out is kind of emblematic of her entire her run that season. Where's Heater in most runs? Honestly, better than half of the names that are already there. Like, am I wrong, guys? Like,
No, sorry.
You are not wrong.
This is genuine because Heater got picked because he was 16 ?
Something like that. And also because he won the previous main match or something. Like,
it's weird. It was weird.
And all because Sixella decided to just take herself to EC, right?
God.
Sorry, I didn't mean to disrupt, and that is what I did.
No. Very good point. Heater, we hear you. We believe in you. Anyways.
I do think on top of all the chaos and the social maneuvering, I do think, Sixella does have a touch of emotional moments,
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She looks back on it, she constantly reflects fucking text dumps, wall of text dumps, in her thoughts channel about, like, her experience, like, playing the Ord. Constantly practices just random ass board games or puzzles, just to be like, I this is my training art. I'm so excited to get good at the Genius, which it's like, it's like watching a kid talk about all the things they want to be when they grow up, and you as an adult trying to make ends meet, just like all rugged, like unshaved facial hair, flies swirling around your head, like, oh boy. They don't
Feels
know.
oddly specific.
They don't know the hardships of adulthood. It kind of felt like that.
I do think Sixella has really great confessionals. It's kind of part of what makes her it's kind of what makes her super interesting to spectate for me personally, because I mean, there's just a lot of yapping, first of all, but a lot of it can be introspective and reflective, and I don't know, it's kind of like watching someone grow in real time. Like, there is a charm and there's something very appealing about that. The way she is so honest about herself, the way she is honest about how she is feeling and about how she thinks the game is playing, and also just seeing her constant desire to growth and wanting to be better. It is super fun to watch. Like, if it comes to confessionals, I don't think Amy or Andre's confessionals or thoughts channels, so to speak, really live up to Sixella, because obviously, like, Amy is playing live, so it's a little different. The only person that really comes close, in my opinion, to Sixella's confessionals is Maji, who similarly had a very strong and important growing arc. Just someone you really want to cheer for. He's always dumping all his thoughts. You can see the visible effort he's putting into everything and anything, how much he cares. He also has good music recommendations, that draws in the crowd. And also someone who, similarly to Sixella, had an arc and grew, and it was really just fun to root for, and just such a lovable kind of underdog, to be honest, for most of the Ord. So I don't know, that to me it's really important that the person I'm spectating has like fun thought processes to follow. Like, we do have these confessional channels, and so when I am judging, especially non-live players, I do think it's important that their thoughts channels are fun to watch, fun to read, and kind of gives us an inside look into how they are feeling. And in that department, I think I think Sixella and Maji take the top spot. So
Yeah.